At this point now, you've thought about a project. You've come up with some ideas. You're going to be looking at the context. You're going to be picking the context. You're going to be picking the parts that you want to specify and build on. Maybe you've even done some modeling. Not required, but you could. So now I want to talk about getting to that specification, the formal specification that we're going to capture in the IP. So what you see here is the key assignment template that I've uploaded to the class. And you're going to start with filling in, you delete the red text as you go, and you'll fill in and put your own APA title page there. I didn't do one here because I know many of you have a great format, really cool stuff you use on your own. Just whatever you'd normally use for an APA title page, you plop inside of there. You can see it's all filled out with a table of contents inside here, ready to go. And then each of these corresponds to a different week. So we're going to start with our system overview here, our application overview. And there's some red text here that's going to tell you what we're going to be filling in as we go. And this is basically your overview of what your system is. That's that written description like we saw in the previous modeling activity that tells us a high level what's going on. What's the purpose of this? What are we going to build? And then we get into the requirement specification. Now this document continues. This will be phase 2. We'll get into design. Phase 3, get to testing, and so on and so forth. But what we need to do is fill in this section right here. So there's 2 options here. You can do use cases, or you can do more traditional shall-based requirements, if you will. If you want to be really formal, use the word shall to indicate a requirement. So in this session, I want to start with use cases because A, I want you to use use cases. I want you to at least learn them. So by putting them first, maybe I show a little preference to them, but you're not required to use them. And B, I think it flows better with the modeling activity. We can get to the other shall-y requirements things, and there'll be another video on that. But let's talk about what we would be capturing in use cases here. So given the system context we talked about before, what we want to do is flip the script a little bit. We looked at modeling, we looked at descriptions. In use cases specifically, we want to look at what are user actions that they would be faced with when dealing with a system. So use cases might be at a high level with a customer. A customer could call in customer service. We might describe what they'd be talking to a customer service person. But for the most part in software development, we're talking about a user sitting down in front of a computer, hands on keyboard, ready to do some activity that's going to take probably at least a couple, maybe 5 minutes, but no more than 20 minutes. If you have more than 20 minutes, you probably have multiple use cases involved. They might, 22 minutes, fine. But if you get in like hour, 2-hour sessions, there's probably more detail there than you need, and you probably could condense it a little bit. So there's no perfect science to this. And we're not even going to get into writing full use cases here. What I want to show you is an option for how do I specify the whole level. So let's think about our system here. So we could say we need a context for here. So the system is designed to allow users to manage their home using the home monitoring system. They will interface via what? That's the question we can ask them. In our case, I'm making up this application. You might be doing the same thing. If you have a real-world application you're doing, then talk to people or base it off of what's something that's out there. If you don't, make it up. So via a kiosk-style touch screen on their wall or a phone application, a phone app. All right. The following features are available. All right. So at this point, I want to describe. I can do it through bullet points. I'm actually going to do it to a table here. And it's going to have use case name and description inside of here. And so the description is going to be a little bit longer, so I'll move this over a little bit. And I don't need to see for your application every single detail that you normally see in a use case. Now, if you've taken a requirements class or you're going to take a requirements class, you'll look it up and see a use case is every single action the user takes and the response by the system. But at the top level, a use case is just the top. It's kind of like the menu, you will, of everything you're going to do. I could order spinach and artichoke dip. I could order, buffalo wings. I can get a burger. I can get pasta. That's top level things. It doesn't tell everything that's included in the dish. It doesn't tell you all the ingredients. It doesn't tell you how it's made. But the use cases are a nice way of letting us know the types of things the user could do. So we could have something like set the temperature. All right, we can say condition a room for plants. We can say respond to an alarm. So these are high-level items, and we need a description to go with them. We need to describe what this actually means, what it does. So the user defines a temperature profile for a room, including the acceptable range of temperatures and humidity value. So we looking at this as we describe it, we think about all the things going on there. Maybe I don't want to say set the temperature. Let's say set the climate. We can, again, be more robust inside here. We're talking about what's going on. So the idea of a use case is to talk about the system from the viewpoint of a user. It's not going to capture every single one of the requirements that you're ever going to write outside of there. But again, that's just half of it is from the user standpoint. And we'll continue this on. Set the condition for the plants. Choose a predefined, choose from a predefined list of house plants, which plants are located in the room. Okay, so again, it's not all the steps involved, but it's giving us a general feel for what's going on in there. Allows the user to acknowledge an alarm and respond accordingly. Now, these are a little bit thin. I don't expect you to have 1-line or 2-line descriptions of yours. I expect yours to be 3 or 4 or 5 lines instead of there. I'm just giving you some examples in the time I have. You're not going to get your homework done in 10 minutes. But this is the first half of this. You're going to define use cases. I don't need 25 of these. I'd like more than 3 when I see your work coming in. But the use cases are only half of it. So if I'm doing requirement specification, I would say use cases here, and I'd probably make it a heading 2, and then I'd come down here and say non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements are absolutely critical, and then even more so in use cases, because the use cases are not showing me all the little system details that I need to know about beyond what is shown between the user interactions. There's going to be other aspects of this that's going to go along. And so for the non-functional requirements, they're actually going to be the exact same process I would follow for non-functional requirements. And so I'm not going to talk about them here, because what I would capture is the exact same stuff I would do in my traditional requirements management. So I have this section here. We're going to come back to it after we talk about the traditional requirements instead. But I would encourage you to take a look at use cases. They're not necessarily less work overall, but they might be for this class because we're only capturing the top level. But you need to capture them correctly. You need to capture the right idea of them. The use cases, again, something the user is saying from the user standpoint. I would not have a use case inside of here that would be reset a sensor based off of power failure or something like that. That's something that would be behind the scenes. It'd be something that's maybe a non-functional thing or a different type of use cases. What I want to see you capturing here is something where your user is interacting with the system. If you're selling stuff, I don't want to see something along the lines of apply sales tax. That's a step. What I want to see is something along the lines of buy a pizza, order a pizza, register my account for future deliveries. Things that are high level that are value added to the user. All right, so take a look at that. Maybe this is a good path you choose to take for building your preferred approach to the assignment this week. But this is what we want to try and capture is something along the lines of use cases, if that's your choice, specifying the type of behavior that we're going to build later on. Be real clear, we don't have to build all of the use cases. If you come up with 6 or 7 use cases, you might only design one of them in the next phase. So don't shy away from a bunch of use cases thinking it's going to be more work down the road. It's okay to define a bunch of them, and then later on, just pick one of them or 2 of them that you're going to go ahead and implement. So I just want to throw that out there as well, because I think this is the modern way in which most people are going to see your companies capturing this information. Even for batch jobs and back-end jobs, a lot of the work is trying to move over into use cases. And so I think it's a valuable thing to practice. And this is a good chance for you to practice it before you have to do it for real.